Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Crypto Hipster Podcast. This is your host, Jamil Hassan, the Crypto Hipster, where I interview founders, entrepreneurs, executives, thought leaders, amazing people all around the world of crypto and blockchain. And today, actually, this is the beginning of season 9. I'm looking forward to my conversations this season. I hope you tune in, and let's go. My amazing guest today. He is the founder and CEO of UGLYCASH. His name is Gabriel Jimenez. Gabriel, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much to be invited. I used to be referenced on my like a decade ago to be a hipster, so I got really excited on the Crypto Hipster podcast. Like yes, yeah, I fully identify. But happy to share. Happy to share this time with you and getting talking in one of the things that I'm most passionate about. That is financial services, financial inclusion, economic opportunity, and all of that enabled through technology.
Awesome. We'll see how much of a hipster I am. My son just passed his driver's exam, so I'm going to be a passenger in the seat going forward, and hope that like he doesn't like do anything bad. So we'll see. So UGLYCASH. Let's talk about that, and I'm looking forward to it. So UGLYCASH, what is it all about, including your purpose, your vision, and your mission?
Yeah. So the main goal, the main purpose is to provide more economic opportunity for everyone around the world. And the main reason and the main idea that this comes from is that we can do much better than we do today on the way that the world works today is that it depends on where you are or who you are. The financial services that you have access to are completely different. If you are in the US or you are in Mexico or you are in Nigeria or you're in Buenos Aires, the financial tools that you have at hand are completely different. Even though we share the same phone with the same software and even the same apps that do way more complicated stuff, like ChatGPT or like this particular Zoom code, like we do technologically things that are very challenging. But financial services are separated depending on where you are. And you may think at first, well, what's the issue with this? Why is this important that everybody has the same financial tool, financial services? Well, if people have different tools in different parts of the world, the inequality gap is going to keep increasing because people will have different opportunities because their tools are completely different from one place to the other. What kind of like financial tools I'm talking about, just to give like an easy example. The easiest of all many times is access to stable currency. So it's very easy to think on inflationary countries, but also it hits on access to credit, borrowing and lending, access to insurance, access to investments as well. So many areas that basically the tools that you have give you the realm of opportunities that you can do for yourself in the future, which are more limited depending on where you are located. So this is like what we want to change. This is the purpose of why UGLYCASH exists. UGLYCASH wants to bring all financial services for all people around the world in only one platform. So imagine WhatsApp, imagine Instagram, but with all financial services but with that level of inclusion, accessibility, mobility of money from all around the world. That is exactly what we're trying to do. And in order to achieve this, we're using stablecoins because of the inherently global characteristic that stablecoins have, as opposed to banks that are inherently local and are the reason precisely of why those financial services in different parts of the world are completely different. So that's why we needed to build it in a different form, in a different way, and we use stablecoins to achieve that purpose.
Got it. So I have a follow up already. So when I think of stable coins, I think of Tether and I think of USDC, and I think of it being pegged to the US dollar. You are not necessarily pegging it to the US dollar, right? You're pegging it to other currencies, including cryptocurrencies, right? So how do you plan on being I love the inclusion piece, but how are you planning on being inclusive, but also, not focusing just on the dollar?
Well, first of all, yes, we use stablecoins that are fixed to the dollar. And the main currency that we use is the main stablecoin that we use is fixed to the dollar. That is how the balance of the customers are preserved, are backed, and are displayed is in US dollars. So we don't have stablecoins today that are not in US dollars stablecoins. That's one piece. But beyond that, there is a bigger component that the focus is never on the technology. The focus is never on a stablecoin or crypto or blockchain. The focus is on the people and on this higher purpose to provide economic opportunity. And in order to achieve that, we need to be technology agnostics. Meaning, I'm going to use USDC, USDT, or any new stablecoin that is compliant and legally allowed. We're going like any kind of blockchain that we use. I'm not looking in one technology as opposed to the other. I'm looking how to achieve the purpose. So we are like technologically agnostic. We self-define ourselves as a stablecoin app as a way to differentiate from the traditional financial system and the financial establishment, the banks, but we use every technology or even banking service or traditional finance components as well. Like we use our Visa card, we are members of associate members of Visa. We work with different banks for different reasons. So we integrate all of what is needed to achieve this goal.
Got it. Okay. So like I said, I love the idea of financial inclusion. That's why I'm in blockchain to begin with. For the people who have been thrown on the sidelines, it's wonderful. But not everybody wants financial inclusion, including like the banks and maybe the European Central Bank and some other central banks. They don't like this concept. But you have been very successful in your life at persuading governments to pilot blockchain projects in some of the most hostile, right, legal climates. How have you been successful? What lessons have you learned that you're applying today?
Well, the number one reason to be successful in on a state level, and this is not only on the context of Venezuela, but in every state of the world, like the state exists to do good for the people. At least that is the the conceptual purpose of what is supposed to be there, right? There are then politicians that sometimes will do a lot of harm to the nation and so on. But the reason for the state to exist is to oversight and build towards a common good for everybody. So I think that when you focus your conversation anywhere, and instead of like focusing on the technological component, you focus on the power to the people, you focus on the improvement to the people, you focus on improving people's life regardless of their political position or so on. The conversation that you get is substantially different. And when you talk about financial inclusion and that banks doesn't necessarily one that I actually think that banks in many places would like to offer all amount of financial services and would like to have all the market for themselves. But the very core of how the banking system works limits them on how to operate. How does it work? They don't have your money. Banks don't have your money. You give the money to the bank, and the bank will take that money, will invest it, put it in different kind of positions, will do so many things that you don't even know or realize what they're doing with that money. And they probably will keep around 5% of that money on what is called the bond. But like 95% of that money is actually being used by the bankers in order to generate profits, cover operational expenses, and so on. For that reason, they need to be also very strictly regulated. And they need to have an insurance on the case, hey, where's the money that you were supposed to have? Oh, we fuck it up. So kind of like they just kind of do so many new things. They just kind of accelerate. They just kind of like serve people that is in other countries. That's why the banking system is inherently local. But when you talk about financial inclusion from a from blockchain crypto point of view, that I completely agree with you. There is a lot of talking on financial inclusion from the crypto world, but at the same time, the people talking about this are kind of like big casinos. It's kind of like, imagine if, the Wynn or the Cosmopolitan in Vegas start talking about financial inclusion, and they go to Congress to talk about financial inclusion, but everybody's like, dude, you are the Bellagio and the Cosmopolitan playing a casino. So like, and to be honest, 99% of the crypto industry, they talk about financial inclusion and financial freedom, but they're all playing the casino. They are all going for the casino. That is actually the low-hanging fruit and the way to make a lot of money into that. But in the places of the world where there were extreme conditions such that access to a stable currency was almost impossible to do, were the first places of the world where the solution that stablecoins could bring, that crypto could bring, started to be applied on the real world to solve real pain points of the people. So, and that sensibility, I think, like the people that have experienced those inequalities of financial services, they can appreciate the solutions directly and the human impact that they do, and the experience that it brings that brings a way to build these tools is a complete different point of view than the traditional casino jargon.
I agree. I agree. I have a follow up. I was thinking about actually, what banks actually can do with stable coins, and it's they can offer you a stable coin. They can buy US Treasuries, which is considered the risk-free rate. I think it's 4% or 3 point something percent. They can earn that, but they can pay you a 0.25% and keep the spread. That's not financial equality, right? Financial equality is when people can buy a stable coin and we can also participate in the 5% yield that they're getting from the Treasury, right? But that's just in the US. There are countries all over the world that don't have as favorable conditions, that have, like Venezuela, like other countries where the government can take the money and then do whatever they want. And then like you'll lose like $1 million in a day of your worth you built all your life. Right. So you pride yourself, I guess, on saying that UGLYCASH is not a bank. Right. So
Yes.
how are you better than a bank to foster financial equality?
And pride ourselves, we make it very intentional. Our name, Ugly Cash, is a name that instantaneously on the minds of the people say this cannot be a bank. No bank will call themselves in this way. And then we tell people, yes, in fact, you're right. We are not a bank. We're something else. We're different. We are a stablecoin app that is more of a novel component to that. And because we are a stablecoin app, is that we can offer you services that banks can't. So it is the reason that people then can have global transactions without a fee. It is the reason because people could have global transactions today, but paying high fees or waiting for international settlements or so on. But you can also have a high percent APY, like the 8% APY that we currently offer right now. We offer also a cashback on top of it, but the core of the reasons to exist of our services is because we are not a bank, but we are a stablecoin app. So it serves as an explanation, but instead of being as a fine print, instead of being a small letters that you read on the behind of a contract, we actually make it very, very clear to the consumer, to the audience, because like it is important that people understand the difference, because there are also other kind of risk, and this is important also to mention. We all have heard about some crypto exchanges sometimes being hacked. We all have heard about Terra losing its peg. We all heard about also USDC losing its peg. It happened when Silicon Valley Bank fell out. So there are counterparty risks, there are smart contract risks, there are other kind of risks that on a bank doesn't exist. So it's important that the people is informed to understand, well, I will operate with this. It is substantially different. I will get other kind of benefits, but I'm also understanding the risk. I am also understanding why this happened. So it is your choice as a consumer in order to say, okay, I'm going to keep X amount of dollars on my bank account, and I'm going to keep X amount of dollars on my UGLYCASH, because my UGLYCASH gives me 8% APY that my bank doesn't give me, but I'm here under other kind of risk that, probably it will be wise not to put 100% of my capital under this only platform, right? So we wanted to have that level of empathy directly with the people, because I think that that is the most sincere and long-term way to establish and build trust between any two parties around the world.
I agree. So you're building something novel, and there are, and you know what, you want to foster social change. So I want to find out from you, like, what do you think are the best approaches to leverage business development and strategy are to foster that social change? In addition to building an app, what are some of those best approaches?
So in one end, it's the strategy wise, it's experience wise. It feels very much the same to make something that the UX feels exactly as the using a Venmo or using Cash App. So strategy wise, it's like, let's abstract everything that you need to learn new ways of using a tool. Let's just use it as you're using everything else. So that is like a core piece of the strategy. You can say that it's different, but when you're using it, it's the same as everything else. That is like an important piece. And then is to communicate, educate, to be that, like, that partner with the customers, that they can always feel that you're going to be the most brutally honest person in the room, and you're going to criticize yourself, you're going to expose what doesn't work for you, that you can be on their side, that you can speak out their mind. I think when you combine these two, you get to a point that is exactly the point where we have reached already on UGLYCASH. That is the same community, the same users, the ones that end up recommending UGLYCASH to anyone else. And they recommend it not because of like the value proposition itself, that the value proposition, oh, this is a great value proposition, the 8% APY, for example, or I can send, back to Mexico or to Nigeria without a fee. For example, yes, the value proposition is great, but you can think of it, many other people will eventually do that because of stablecoins as well, and that is something that is effectively happening. But the relationship that you have with your customers is totally unique. The trust that you develop with your customers is totally unique. And then your customers are the wave that end up um, recommending and sharing with many other people around the world, and becomes a snowball effect, basically a small snowball that turns into an avalanche the more and more people joins the platform.
I like that. You said two words together that I think is missing in this industry. You said brutal honesty. How do we get there? Because I think it's missing. I'm on X all the time, and I see a lot of fabrications. So how do you do it?
Yes, and I completely feel you. Many times, not many times, all the times I stay quiet. I don't like to. I'm a builder myself, and even that I'm building myself. I like to bring, I'm the kind of person that likes to bring positive change to the world, not negative change to the world, meaning that instead of pointing what others are doing wrong, I try to build something that just does better, to bring a solution that does better. And I think that I come from that angle because I come from a country that was heavily politicized, kind of like similar levels to what the US is today. But and looking that just calling out to each other wasn't bringing to any kind of like actual solution to the people. So I think that we need more of the what I call the good guys, the good platforms, the good fintechs, the good financial services to effectively win in the world. It is so easy to be attracted to the gambling, to be attracted to quick schemes of everyone can become rich, to be attracted of any kind of like, can you see like meme coins, a way to get rich, like prediction markets, a way to get rich, NFTs, a way to get rich, and of course, like I like sincerely would love everyone to get rich. I logically understand that that is effectively impossible. But when you have those like mantras, because they are like mantras, they're like meditation mantras. I'm happy, I'm grateful. That's like everybody is gonna be rich. Not because you repeat it 100 times on this case, it's going to effectively make everyone to win money. On the meme coins, for example, 99% of the people lose money on the meme coins. Just to put this example, on prediction markets, that is a new shiny big things that everybody is talking about. Oh, how much volume and how on. That is gambling with a different name. You're just doing something else. And of course, that makes a lot of money. That has traditional makes a lot of money. Everybody claps, after that. But hey, what if we fix a fundamental problem for society and for humanity? That is what we're trying to do. When we have those companies effectively to become dominant players in the world, I think we're gonna see some change on the industry. I think it's natural. People like chase and cheers the winners on a particular category and become like the biggest example of what it can be. But I think that the change will come as an example, by leading by example. That way can drive a different narrative to what crypto smoke and mirrors used to sell.
Yeah. I put $400 into World Liberty Financial. I never gamble. I never buy memes. I never do that. But I put $400 and had it was expendable. Like, I put this money to gamble. I lost. I'm like, okay, now I know what it feels like to. Like, before I was being ultra conservative for the past several years, because I had my money in Celsius. So I'm like, I can't make another mistake. So
absolutely makes sense. It absolutely makes sense.
yeah.
And hey, I also love, buy some crypto, some meme coins, and everybody, can do it. I'm just not. Uh, that is just not what I'm building towards.
Yeah. But you are using you are using a currency which I used to buy. It's been 5 years, called reserve rights, and you have something called RUSD. So I want to find out what's the current state of reserve rights, and how are you helping? How is that going to help the industry reduce risk from like future stablecoin depeggings, like we saw in Terra Luna, like you mentioned?
Yes. So reserve right is building a decentralized monetary system. The end goal of reserve is to enable currency that doesn't lose value ever. Mechanisms that usually has been gatekeep for the 0.5% of the population to protect their wealth from inflation, but to make it in a way that the whole world with the currency by the exchange of the value of their work, and they get currency, don't ever need to think about, oh, my currency is going to lose purchasing value in that way. So that is the end goal. And in order to do that, it needs to happen in a decentralized manner, like different to current stablecoin players as USDC or Tether or many of the Genius Act like payment stablecoins definition according to the Genius Act. They are centralized and treasury backed by nature, which is awesome and give a lot of utility. But at the same time, for a currency to be able to neutrally exist in every part of the world, and when I mean neutrally, just think about Bitcoin, for example, how Bitcoin is used in Asia, and or could be used even in China, but could be used also in Russia, but could be used even in the US or Salvador. Like it can be basically used everywhere, and at the same time, it's not necessarily fiat backed. And what I mean by fiat backed is like it's not pegged to the US dollar or is not pegged to any other fiat currency that exists in the world. So in order to do that, like Reserve created what is kind of like a decentralized Vanguard, a decentralized BlackRock, where people can create decentralized token folios. That's what they call it. They call it DTF. That is basically in a smart contract, you can put a basket of different digital assets. And the idea is that with more real world assets being tokenized, you can bring real world assets of the world and make a portfolio that will be basically a hedge of inflation of the world. That's basically the core idea on that. And on top of it, there is the reserve rights that if there is a black swan event or something that affects one of those different diverse assets, it will automatically sell part of the reserve rights that are kind of like overprotecting that particular basket to protect its price. So in a way, it's looking very, very forward. Reserve is a project that is looking very, very forward. Like all the real world assets that exist today are actually very, very limited, and it's not what is needed in order to build this particular currency. But the reserve protocol mechanism already exists. There is a stablecoin on the reserve protocol that we use that is called EUSD. It's composed by Aave USDC, Compound USDC, and Aave USDT, if I'm not mistaken. And in case of any defect, the RSR that is staking, that is overprotecting that basket, will effectively be sold automatically and cover in case that any black swan of that underlying asset will lose its back. So it's an additional protection that that help build more trust on the smart contract risk that you and not only on the smart contract risk, but also on the underlying assets that are generate like that have the value of the token, is the way that is created.
How do you I mean, we could probably go into this and examine this for a long time. But how do you know what that right limit is with the reserve rates backing? How do you know how to assess that risk?
The risk of what?
You said it's reserve. It's the reserve rights is acts as a buffer, right? So how do
Yeah.
you? So you need to assess the risk somehow, the market risk somehow. So how do you know when you're gonna go past that risk level? How do you measure that? How do you measure that level?
Yeah, let me explain EUSD. That is the one that we use. So 100% of the value of EUSD is collateralized on the basket. So it's 100. So if I get one EUSD, I can then redeem a third of AVE USDC, AVE compound USDC, and AVE USDT. So 100% of that basket is collateralized. The RSR is an over collateralization. So on top of that we know that USDC lose its peg for 1 day approximately, like back in when the Silicon Valley Bank effectively happened, or if there is a particular failure that hasn't happened on Aave and Compound as well. That is when the protocol effectively, because the protocol is reading if there is any defect of the underlying asset, and when it detects that there was a defect is when the protocol automatically sells the RSR. It's kind of like an insurance without being an insurance, but to feel, oh, well, in case of anything wrong happens, there is this additional RSR that will help further protect the balance of the currency, basically.
Makes sense. Makes sense. This was my insurance hat coming back on because I told you in a former life I worked at AIG. So sometimes I think of it things it's like it makes sense to me. It works. I think it's going to work. I like it. So I want to ask a couple more questions. One is, I'm thinking that there are countries. You said countries mostly are embracing blockchain technology now. There are some newer ones, or not. They're not newer countries, but they're older countries that are newer to embracing blockchain now. How do you think that your outlook and your perspective can help them shape economic policy?
Well, I think that if all governments of the world would use blockchain for all the financial operations, we will basically live in a almost corrupt-free world. Because with blockchains, you can see effectively the transactions that are effectively happening. You can audit, you can like map exactly where do they move. And given that these are public institutions funded with public funds as well, it will make sense that society will effectively look at them. I do think that the biggest gatekeeper of this is effectively politicians, because they don't want the whole society to be looking at every action or judging at every action that they're doing. So even that there is a lot of blah 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 on politicians stating against corruption, of course, and I'm talking not in one country specific, okay? I'm talking this in general. I'm not even though this may resonate to your ears in the US, but it may resonate to somebody in Argentina, and it may resonate to somebody in Mexico or anywhere in the world. The thing is that even though they might and even legitimately be against corruption in general, I'm not saying that they are not, the mere fact that the whole society can judge every action or every spend or financial transaction done by the state is very very scary for any politician to implement it in a real scale on their country. So when countries are talking about potential blockchain adoption, they are not actually thinking on implementing it in a statewide. I think that the closest that we got to that actually was Venezuela. That is exactly what I was trying to achieve over there. But that's actually part of the reasons why the Venezuelan government effectively didn't like it. The project never existed, and they ended up charging me with treason to the fatherland. So in a way, transparency and total transparency, even though politicians may be against corruption, is something that threaten politicians and gatekeepers and these institutions to exist. So I see that very challenging to happen unless it's society directly the one that is effectively requesting and have a strong proposal with something like that.
Got it. So we have a long way to go, but we're going down that road. So it sounds good to me.
Yes, yes. I think we're on the right track. We're on the right track. I think that if we see bigger and better adoption on crypto with traditional financial services, we can see the population thinking differently about it. Because if you tell anyone that is not in crypto today, if you tell any of your friends that is not in crypto, the word crypto, many will, raise their eyebrow and it's like, okay, yeah, oh, that's what is used by hackers, or that is or that is what North Korea is using, or that's for gambling, and people. So if you in the society, right, in the society, if you have that belief on this technology, that is kind of like it's very funny because it's kind of like the people that believe in the pastime of witches. Oh, that's a witch because you don't understand it. What was going on? It's kind of like a little bit what happens. But like we were talking about the smoke and mirrors industry that the crypto world is also a reality. So when we see companies like UGLYCASH succeed in the world and apply crypto in traditional financial services for everyone, make a positive impact to the world, I think that we could see more that change of narrative in the society, and we could potentially see society requesting to the state for this to be applicable.
Awesome. I agree. I look forward to that day. So I want to thank you very much for your time today. I enjoyed speaking with you. It's been a wonderful conversation. I have one last question. It's probably the easiest one I've asked you. It's how can people find out more information about you, about UGLYCASH? How can they become users of your products?
Nice. Well, on TikTok and Instagram, they can find ugly.cash directly, and they can find me on Twitter. I go with stablecoin app is my Twitter handle. That's my personal Twitter handle. So I'm always there to answer any questions or chat with the community. And this is a very long journey towards global economic opportunity for everyone. So tune in and be part of the ride.
Awesome. Thank you very much for your time today.
Thank you so much, Emo.